Hey guys, this is Az from the Short Convos podcast. Just an apology. In this week's episode, we had some technical difficulties at about the 13-minute mark where my camera and microphone died on me. So you'll see a switch in both video and audio quality at this stage. We've got it sorted for next time, so this shouldn't happen again. And apologies. Please enjoy the show. We had a real fun time making this one, and we will see you on the next one. Boom, we are live. Welcome to the Short Combos podcast, episode 30 something. I can't quite remember.
30 something, yes.
And we have a special guest. For those of you on the video, one can see it. Those on the audio cannot. Jay, would you like to introduce this?
Yeah, I'm JC Warrior of Light, and this is our new family member, Beau. She is a rescued crossbreed, come all the way from Bulgaria. I just said to Az, she's not a lap dog, but while I'm waiting for Lauren to get in, we're not going to leave her down where she can chew things, especially electrical cables, and do damage. So she's going to join us for the start of our show this week.
Well, I think she's a great starting point, and that I wanted to talk a little bit about, because you've now got one like pure breed dog, shall we say, and one rescue. So I guess those are two very different ways of going about getting a dog. And a lot of people at Christmas time get dogs, and there's a lot of issues around that, isn't there? The whole dog's not just for Christmas and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think we're unfortunately in a time frame, depending on when people catch up with this podcast, you shouldn't be getting a dog just for COVID as well. And I unfortunately heard an advert the other day and someone else saying that so many people have bought dogs during lockdown that there's now a surge in the rescue centres and everything else of abandoned dogs. It's almost like the same as what happens at Christmas, they're a novelty, it all wears off when they start pooing and weeing everywhere and, costing money and everything else, that people have, started turning them in from the lockdown, which, is a crime, really.
Can I share a real dark thought?
Yeah. Go for it. I'm open to all.
So the fact that people do that, right? Do you think that some people, if it was possible to do it with kids, they would do it with kids? Some people have kids and they're clearly not ready for it, and the novelty wears off and they get to like that 1 year point. And then there's certain people in certain reasons who would keep the kid. And I don't even know what I'm actually trying to say. I just had it ping into my head that people just get rid of dogs like it's so easy to just get rid of one, it doesn't affect them. But as a dog lover and yourself as a dog lover, I find it hard to understand. For me, if you could do that, you could probably just give away a child all the same. Like that's how I think your mentality must be, because I couldn't fathom it. It just seems horrible.
No. Like I don't have. It's not the stomach. It's just maybe it is. I couldn't work with animals in the sense of as a vet. I couldn't. I don't think I could even work in a shelter, because it seems to have come off of the social media, but there was a period of time where there was a lot of things shared on social media, like cruelty wise, which wasn't, oh, look at this, it's really sick, as in, oh, this is really cruel, what's happening. I can't even look at those images. It upsets me that much. That's why I couldn't be a vet, or I don't think I could work at a shelter, because the things that you would have to deal with I couldn't emotionally deal with, would upset me so much. And I think that's what you're getting at, isn't it? It's almost like these people are detached from that emotion.
That's it. I just think you've got to have a bit of a screw loose to just be able to, and it's not that, I guess if you take it to a rescue center, you're at least being somewhat responsible for it. But it's the ones where they just leave them in a box or leave them in a building, and then they get found by like RSPCA and they're, starved half to death and all the rest of it. Those kind of things where my brain just can't quite wrap around it, because it's just horrible, let alone things like dog fighting and all the rest of it, like taking it down that whole route. But you see a lot of rescue dogs where they come from some pretty horrific, the backstories with them.
Oh yeah, it is horrendous. But swinging it on the child thing, like you brought in there, and then suddenly retract and thought, "What am I talking about?" But like,
I hadn't
look,
thought it out enough.
yeah, look at China, for instance. Their culture is the male will always be the heir to the family, and they can only have, or is it one child now or two children? There's like a
I think they've
law,
actually lifted that law now,
have
but it
they?
hasn't changed anything. As in, people are still very much keeping to it, even though I believe, and don't quote me on that, but I think they have lifted that.
Well, anyway, there was a period of time where and this is maybe why they lifted it. There was a period of time where they brought. I feel like a James Bond villain here. Uh, they had this law where you could only have, let's say it was two children or one child, and with their culture, the male would always be the one that would lead the family name, ultimately would look after you in your later years. And there was so many girls in sheltered homes and adoption centres and these child places because people were abandoning their daughters because they wouldn't then have anyone look after them in later life. So it does happen in that
Yeah.
sense as well.
I think
But
that's what I was trying to get at, is the whole adoption thing with kids. And then it just doesn't, it's not so surprising that you see so many dogs in rescue centers, because people do it to their own flesh and blood, and therefore, yeah, you can see how it would then end up happening to dogs. I've always found with rescue dogs that there's a sadness in their eyes, like you can see that they've been abandoned or been hurt or been abused. I love it that they get rescued and they get a second chance, and that dog doesn't know how lucky it is. It's going to be in a good family and a good home. It's going to have a nice life. But I see it personally. I don't know about you, but I could see the difference in her eyes to Bruce's eyes.
oh, 100%. Like the whole experience of getting a rescue dog has been completely different, completely different. Like we've, as in Lauren and I, as a family unit, like I grew up in a household of dogs. We always had three dogs. I was born into three dogs, and we always had three dogs running around. But as Lauren and I, as a family unit, for the last 20 years, we had a thoroughbred English Bull Terrier, Lacey, and then German Shepherd Bruce, both come from Kennel Club breeders. And then when Lauren very first said about getting another dog, because she initiated it and said about a rescue dog, I was a little bit reluctant initially because we did, as a family growing up, have a few experiences. My grandparents and a few other people we knew had experiences with rescue dogs that weren't so pleasant because the dog had been through so much trauma. And there's always that issue with a dog and a child, especially a rescue dog. No dog can be, fully trusted, but especially a rescue dog. But Beau came up, she was found, mother had just literally given birth on the street in Bulgaria to them. And the home in place out there, dog home in place, literally picked her up. Otherwise, the mum and the litter would have died.
Right.
Took them in, and she's only 4 months old, so she hasn't had that scarring issue of being necessarily mistreated, beaten, or whatever these horrendous acts people do. And but you can definitely see it. Like, she arrived, and the breeder, she used to take all the litter in, so they did like a 4-day trip to get over. Arrived at 2 in the morning, and the breeder would usually take them in and then house them for the night, and then everyone would come and collect them next day. But she said it was such a traumatic thing because she'd have to stay up all night with this litter of dogs, and it'd take a weekend out. So she basically gets us to go there an hour early, do all the paperwork, make sure it's all official, and then as the van turns up, we literally take them into her arms and walk away. And she's clinging on to you for dear life. We get inside, all Bruce wants to do is say hello, and she's growling at him, just pure survival mode.
Yeah.
And she hates being separated. She doesn't want to be away from anyone at all. So a few early mornings, and that just lying with her next to her in a cage and all of that. So it's definitely a different experience. But then again, it feels really rewarding as well. To give something like this its chance at a good life.
Yeah, I bet. I think you spoke to the reason that so many people give dogs away after a year is They don't tell you enough about the hardship of the first year or so with a dog, in terms of what you need to put in place to make it the nice experience that you all have in your head of what it's going to be to have a dog, in terms of the training and the discipline. And I think that's where it goes wrong a lot of the time, like sitting next to your dog's crate or bed rather than just letting them into your bed at night, which is what a lot of people end up doing. I think that can be a big part of the problem. And then you don't set any boundaries, and the dog obviously doesn't know what it's doing. And then you end up in a situation where the dog becomes unmanageable.
Oh yeah, like on Monday, day one, Laura, we took Beau for a walk, Poppy to school, got back, and it's like you don't go in until the dog does a wee. So we're outside in the cold, in the garden, and Laura, bless her, she doesn't have the most patience, but she's like, "Oh, we've been out here 10 minutes. She's not going to do it." And it's like, well, if she goes and wees, it's on you. It's your clear up. So we go in. Surely 2 minutes later, she wees on the floor, and it's like, we haven't given up since. She does everything outside, and those sort of things you pay forward. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of, I could be doing something else right now, but you pay it forward, and then you have a good, well-mannered, trained dog. And it's exactly the same with kids. And in some ways, they're both living animals, but in some ways, it's worse what you see people doing with kids, the way they feed them, pander to them and everything else, because they then have kids of their own, and it's even worse.
Yeah, and therein lies the issue, right? Because we had a dog school that came in after my classes, and I'd always have a talk with the instructor. And the famous line amongst dog trainers is, you don't train the dog, you train the owner, because the dog's a dog. But you have to teach people effectively how to raise them, and how to understand their behaviors, to then get them to behave in a desirable way and to fit in as part of the family unit. And it's the same with parents, isn't it? Your kid isn't the problem. It's that you've been a bad parent, to be quite frank. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time, that's what we see it all the time. You meet a kid comes in and you're like, why are you like that? And then you meet the parent and you go, that's why you're like that. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, it's not so much. I don't think it's you being bad parent. I think they're far. If I'm really honest, I think they're far and few between. I think it's you make mistakes. You
Sure.
make bad choices, because
Yes.
I don't think anyone really sets out to be a bad parent, and I don't think many people set out to be a bad pet owner or a bad dog owner. There are some just evil bastards out there for sure, both parents and pet
but
owners.
it's a minority, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it's bad choices. It's bad choices of when you decide to have the child, or the choice on which the act brought the child into the world, the choice of which to have the dog, and not the forward thinking of the animal and the child as well.
Yeah.
God, this was deep and meaningful start to the conversation.
Dogs do that. They bring out the emotional stuff, I feel.
We carried it. Don't worry, as we carried it. Beau was
no
just
doubt.
talking about she doesn't have a camera face yet.
There will be an edit there, guys. Apologies, my camera has just decided to go up in smoke. There's no actual smoke, but I'm going to assume that something's smoking. We will
smoking.
We will carry on. We will power through. Through.
As professionals, we are. Where were we as?
You were telling me a news story, a very pleasant news story.
So there was this pleasant. So amongst all this COVID, doom and gloom, there was this archaeology dig, and they found the oldest remains of evidence of man with dog, domesticated dog, wolf. And I can't remember what it dated back, but we're talking like thousands of years, and it predates anything else that they ever thought, with cats or with anything at all. And it proved, like, just, I don't know how we go back that far with our relationship with a dog in particular, with how the dog would help us in turn for us to help it. So we would give the shelter and the warmth, and the dog would then in turn like help us hunt, or it was a really lovely, I'm not doing it justice, it was a really lovely piece to read amongst everything as well. And I couldn't imagine life without a dog. It's it even feels strange now that we've been so long with just one dog.
Yeah, I find the idea of how long we've been domesticating animals like fascinating. That whole thing, that whole process of, and again, before I assume it was mostly for work, right? Like dogs were
survival,
for a purpose
yeah,
long before they were just a pet. But obviously, amongst that, it becomes a companion, doesn't it? Even if it's a working dog,
yes.
it becomes a part of your family, and it's just the character. They just got so much character in them.
Yeah, most definitely. And we found, like, we've always had German Shepherds in our line, our family, and we found each one of them always different as well. They have, similar traits, similar things you like about it, and that's why you go to them, all different as well. And they are, definitely part of the family as well.
Amazing. My wife is allergic to dogs. The only thing she's not allergic to is a donkey. So at some point, I'm going to get a pet donkey up in here. It's basically a massive dog, right? Great Dane, donkey.
Yeah, you can pull that off.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, donkey.
No one will
about
know.
Pig? Can you get?
Yeah,
away
imagine
with
a pig would be fine. Yeah, that's a dog, right? That literally is a dog.
Yeah.
Done,
I remember again reading or seeing something where someone had a pet pig. So
yeah, apparently it always goes
could eat
wrong.
all the biscuits, couldn't it?
Because people buy those what they think is a micro pig, which turns out just to be a baby pig, and then it grows into a massive pig. But I think I'd want a big pig anyway. Why would you want a little pig? If you're gonna get one, get a real one, right?
Yeah, and that you could take the lounge into a big mud pit. You could go to the next level, couldn't you? Beau's heard food. She thinks of her belly. She's heard plates and food.
Me too.
Calm, Beau.
I understand.
You've eaten. How's your week been,
The week has been okay. When was it that we mentioned the kind of on day, off day, that it was just this?
Yeah,
that trend just seems to continue. And I don't think I've kind of come to peace with it, to the point where if I've had a good day, I go to bed going, well, tomorrow's gonna suck. And I just I'm not trying to fight it anymore, because I just think, well, if I can get it right 50% of the time, I'm not going to be too hard on myself right now. And that's something. It's just not beating yourself up too much when things are not exactly going according to plan, as it were. I'm very guilty of that. I don't know about you, but I'm my hardest critic, and I tend to attack myself far more than I should with certain things, when most people just say, "As you're doing fine, give yourself a break," because you're not helping yourself by just kicking yourself while you're down. So
most definitely.
a bit more at peace with things. I'm assuming you've had a lovely week, or a very busy week, if nothing else, right?
I'm cream crackered, I'm
I bet.
absolutely fucking knackered. Like, I don't like swearing. My mum would always say it's ugly, and you've got a lack of vocabulary, everything else. I don't like it, but there is a time and place for it, and the words have the use. Yeah, I'm effing knackered, for no good, bad, or ugly, indifferent. And I know I'm preaching to the converted here. Someone's talking about being tied to someone that's I can't see, my brain don't even work.
Permatired,
amnesia. But I know we've spoken before, but no, I'm genuinely like running on empty. But what I have found this last week, since we got her at 2 a.m, I think that was the breaking point. I didn't go to bed, and it's just been real short day, nights of sleep, and I haven't said blah blah blah. I won't bore you with the details. But what I have thought about is quite a bit is this moment of being present. And I think that helps you, saying about not getting things done and everything else, not having off days. I think that's a very relevant thing, and it comes up because I was talking to a hairdresser. I've talked about the hairdresser before on the show. We have a nice chat, and he was talking about the whole book, The Power of Now, and I was really thinking about it, and thinking about how, like, you have to plan, don't you? That's what I don't like when I'm tired at the moment. I'm not in a very much of a planning phase. I'm very much firefighting. There's something that's got to be done today, or something I should have done, someone I should have called yesterday, or something this weekend. If I don't plan it right now, people are going to be asking questions. I need those answers before those questions. And I was starting to think about that with the whole power of now, because the power of now, of living in the moment, if you're thinking about the future, you're no longer in the future, are you? You're no longer in the now, you're in the
present.
future. But when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, if you spend most of your time, the majority, it's back to that quadrant. If you spend a big part of your time planning and preparing, it means you're always present in the future, because you're not trying to catch up where you weren't. So, for instance, we did a course at the weekend, hit that bell, bong, an advanced course. And on the, I think I sorted it all out, let's say on a Tuesday night. The course was on the Saturday and Sunday. Came to the course on the Sunday. I'd set everything out on the Saturday. I had everything planned from earlier in the week. I didn't really have to do anything. I was absolutely, my brain was melted. I was absolutely vegetated. I hadn't had any sleep and everything. But I didn't have to do anything. I could be very present in the moment. Whereas if I hadn't planned everything, if I hadn't have sorted everything else out, I wouldn't have been present at that time. I found that, I found being tired has been useful to open my mind to that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get it. I think, that whole power of now thing, there's two ways of looking at it. There's that, what I would call the very liberal way of just be in the moment, man. Like, don't worry about tomorrow. Everything will work out. Just be, and everything will be fine, which is not the way we live. I think, take the dog as an example. A dog lives like that. A dog does not think about tomorrow. A dog does not think about anything other than right now I'm hungry, right now I'm tired. And that's what a dog is. But I think what makes a human is our ability to look into the future and to predict things and to plan and all the rest of it. I think it's what makes us who we are. And I think you hit the nail on the head with, it's not about not ever thinking about the future, but it's about planning so that when the moment comes, time with your family, course, whatever it is, you can then just be in it, rather than, like you said, fighting fires all the time and never feeling like you're grounded to anything.
And I can't think of an example, but I'm of no grand age whatsoever, but I feel like I've been around the circle of life now, and I've got a bit of experience. And I find looking at the past has certainly helped me to the moment of being present now as well, especially interacting with people, interacting in a professional sense. I feel I've got answers now, very articulate, educated and experienced answers to, I can't think of examples for you, but when you get silly people, silly questions in a business sense, a professional sense, or even in the everyday, you bump into someone or some sort of situation happens, and because in the past you have dealt with it, as in you've experienced it and not possibly dealt with it, you might have frozen, you might have been caught out, you might be mugged off, or those kind of things. Because I'm very present of those moments when it happens. And I don't know, do you do it where you sort of play out in your mind, you sort of do a bit of a drama in your mind of how you're going to talk to someone, or if something's happened, how you should have dealt with it? And I find playing that past tense out, it helps very much the moment as well.
Reflection on things. And that's where that's where it's like you're being critical of yourself, but in a constructive way. It's not in a destructive way. It's to support future you when that situation inevitably comes up again in some way or another, that you thought, right, I don't want this to ever happen to me again the way it happened today. So what do I need to put in place that we're not going to end up in that spot again? And painless experience the next time.
So I'm being very much in the moment of now, and I'm tired in the now at the moment.
There's nothing like being super tired to put you in the now.
No, exactly.
Can't be anywhere else.
As I'm going to notes because I feel this one might take a while. We're our top 3 this week. We said about songs, didn't we? We're not going to make this a music special, but do you want to lead this off? Your top 3 songs. I feel I've challenged you with almost the impossible challenge.
Yeah, so it was an impossible challenge, as in these are not my top 3 favorite songs of all time, because I don't think that's a quantifiable thing. I don't think it's possible. Depends on where you're at in your mind, what's going on in your life. Like there's certain moments, like a certain car ride, where a certain song comes on, and that's the best song in the world. But it's only because of that car ride and that moment and that scenery that's the best song in the world. You know
So
what I
that's
mean?
that's not the same as Sources then.
No, I don't think so. I think sources are a consistent thing until another source comes around that bumps its way into it. But I think this, in my mind anyway, from my experience, I could never say these 3 songs are the end all be all, and everything else is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 after that. I just couldn't do it.
So what did you refer to Sources as? Is a
It's
you just used the word.
I did use a word, and the word has already gone out of my head, and now we're both too tired to bring back the word.
Well, it wasn't a standard. It was something like that. So if the sources are, that word was, what is a play? What is a song then? What is your favorite song? So sources. Well, what else could we put into the sources? Well, we said tools. Tools was a bit tricky, but
Tools can be
plants.
tricky.
Plants, we were pretty much there, weren't we? We were quite on the same point. So they are collective. That word you said a little while ago that we're too tired to remember. Can when you cut this, well, not that you cut it, when you cut it for the
I'll just put the word in.
sharing, yeah, put the word in. What is then? What category does music fall into? Why can't you give it a top 3? What you explained why, but what does that fall into?
I'm going to give 3 songs today. And I've got 3 reasons for why these are great songs and why they're personal to me. But on any given day, that 3 could change. And that's what I mean. And I'll give you an example. You go to, I'm in a bit of a dark mood today, so let me pick the nicer one. You go to a wedding, all right? And it's a lovely wedding.
That's a nicer one. I hate weddings. I have to see people at weddings.
Switch it. You go to a funeral, and a certain song gets played at the funeral, and then that song, it evokes an emotion, and then you're going to attach it to that person who, let's say, is very close to you, and then suddenly that song has increased in value tenfold. You know, in that moment, it's become far more personal to you than it ever was. And that's what I mean by it. Is it's just so ever changing. It's not quantifiable. That's the word. So like with sources, you can say this sauce is sweet. I like sweet things. That's why I like this sauce. Whereas with songs, there's so much of it that you can't pinpoint the reasoning for, other than, you know, I was holding hands with my partner when this song played and the sun set, and therefore this song is this song.
It's quantifiable. So what else is quantifiable, or is not quantifiable? My brain's melting.
It's not quantifiable.
It's not quantifiable. So what else is not quantifiable? Because or is it just songs?
I mean, I guess it's things that evoke more of an emotional response. You know what I mean? Right? It's a deep, like for me, music is very deep, and it carries a lot of emotion and feeling. It's not just something to like tap my foot to. It can evoke emotions. It can bring back memories. You know, you couldn't say which of your child is your favorite child. You could probably sit down and say, we told them better behaved.
The eldest we messed up, so the middle one we'll get
learn
him
as
right.
You go.
Yeah, no, of course, of course.
But you could sit down and probably say this one's better behaved, but this one's smarter. But none of that matters, right? You can't quantify your love for the kids.
Now we've fallen into a moment of synchronicity with the conversation, that we've now created a present moment. So when the next person has, I don't know if you've not got children yet, but if anyone has managed to put this, like for instance, which is your favorite sister or something like that. But I have had from time to time, and it's normally at weddings where you get those idiots. That's why I referred to that as weddings. Turn around and say, which is your favorite kid then? Or something like that. So I now have the experience of life to turn around and I'm going to say it's not quantifiable. Why would you? It's like, for instance, music. If you're talking about sources, mate, then we could talk about sources. And my taste,
I'll give you my top three easy.
I just love having that. I suppose it's a bit smarmy. It's a bit, what's it? But I just quite like being that ready for people like that.
Me too. Ready for war, man. Whatever form it takes.
Right, let's jump to the music then. Let's jump to music. Sell me your songs, Az.
Let's go. All right, number one is Never Going Back Again by Fleetwood Mac, but in particularly Lindsey Buckingham, who is the guitarist and male voice lead, obviously famous for dating Stevie Nicks. And of course, for anyone who doesn't know, Fleetwood Mac was just this crazy, incestuous little group that was just all loving each other, breaking up with each other, but managed somehow to continue to make music the entire time.
Great
and just
music.
wrote amazing music about each other.
Yeah,
so this
and a boy who had
about...
a girl's name and a girl who had a boy's name.
Oh, I mean, so Fleetwood Mac for me was, if I can say, they are one of my favorite and the greatest bands.
Is it Michael Mick Fleetwood, the drummer?
That's cool. No, you did not.
Yeah. My dad had a stall selling his art in Horsham Town Centre, and it was just like a little stall. And Lauren used to man the stall of the weekend and sell his art. And the stall opposite us was a music collector. He had CDs at the time and everything else. And every now and then, Mick Fleetwood would come and buy CDs because I think he lived in Faygate round the corner. And there was one week he turned up and it was like, I recognise him. And I happened to turn up. I forget why I had it with me, but I just won my Wacko Pro belt. And he happened to notice it while he was like looking at Dad's work, and he's like, "Oh, what's that about?" And he's like, "Oh, well done." Blah, blah. I was like, "No, well done, you, mate." And it was like, yeah, quite a surreal moment. So yeah. Anyway, do you have the song? Can you play us a snippet?
So we can't play snippets only because we will get
take us off, won't it?
We'll get cut off of platform. So I could have got my guitar and gave it a go, but the guitar's out of tune and off of strings. But Never Going Back Again, Fleetwood Mac. I believe it's off the Rumours album for anyone who wants to go and check these songs out as you're going through. But I really recommend going and finding Lindsey Buckingham playing it live, because it's one of the most difficult pieces of guitar that you'd ever imagined. And the way you know it is when he left Fleetwood Mac, it took 3 guitarists to play just what he would play on his own when they would play that song. Yeah. So it's as a musician and just as a badass, that song has to go up there. 100% top 3. Are we going to go 1 for 1 on this one?
No, you can do all 3. You're going to do all 3.
All right. Number 2, and I said last week, I have a very eclectic taste. So I've tried to satisfy that eclectic taste to make me feel a bit more rounded out in my choices, and therefore it feeling more like a top 3 rather than my top 3. Because if I could then just go down a route of acoustic-y music, which we're not going to do.
You could do 3 Fleetwood Mac, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah, easy peasy. Right, so next one, SIC by Slipknot. Slipknot in general as a band, I loved because they made sense to very few people. 99% of people would listen to it and go, "That's just noise." And I loved that about it. And then what I really liked about it is that if you actually looked into it, they were very intelligent men. They were very smart, very well educated. This is how they express themselves, through screaming and wearing masks and jumping up and down. And this song in particular, it was based off of a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, who was a famous poet, wrote loads of really nice sonnets and lyrics and all of this, and really pretty stuff. But this song is just pure anger and violence. You'd have to get into the lyrics to see and understand kind of the deeper meaning to it. And I like that. I like that it's not because a lot of music today and a lot of music, you know, the kids listen to, it's very shallow. It's very on the surface. It's so easily digestible. It's so easy to understand. And it's kind of like, yeah, it sounds nice. It's, you know, it's pleasant, but there's no substance to it. You know, there's nothing to it. For me, this song has a lot of substance. And yeah, if you're ever just full of rage, it just, it evokes and it works. It works. You just get a hammer, get something to hit with said hammer and put this song on and hit until your arm falls off and you're sorted. So last one, No Role Models by J. Cole. J. Cole is a relatively recent rap artist, hip hop artist. I really like J. Cole in general because he goes back to an older school version of hip hop where lyrics had content, like back to the 60s through to the 80s, where there was a bit more intention behind what they were saying. They weren't just talking about how much money they had or you know, how the new car and all of it. Exactly. And this song in particular is about him growing up without a male role model around, and him growing up without people to look up to, and how he had to become the role model for himself. And he took that personal responsibility of figuring out and finding out how to be a role model for the next generation, because he didn't have that in his life growing up. And I think stuff like that, and if we could all not only talk about that more, but have people express it in art form so that it reaches a wider audience, I think that's a really powerful thing. So I think he does a great service through songs like that. And then it's a great song to listen to, but at the same time, it hits a few more spots. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You did very well there, Az. I didn't think you could get there, because you know what? I don't have a top three. Songs are not quantifiable, Az. So I wasn't bringing the top three to this. It is just not possible, Az. But what I'll do to satisfy the need and to play along, I've got my top playlist here. Like my album. How do you listen to music? Like, I used to historically be an album man. I grew up with my dad listening to albums. I used to switch the cassette over knowing that two more songs on would be my favorite song. And there was a point at which I had every Bruce Springsteen album and could only listen to it as an album and things like that. But I think since the iPod age, the way that music has been listened to is completely different. I don't listen to a lot of new music all the time. I like the radio. That's usually where I pick up new music, or from my daughter. She's got a really good, diverse playing of music and listening to music, and she introduced me to new songs. But I pretty much go back to like this, my top rated. I can't find the notes. It's some 1,000 songs on it. It used to say how many songs there are on it, but I can't see. But yeah, there's like 1,000 songs on it, and 1,444 songs, 110 hours and 29 minutes. This is usually how I listen to music now. It's just a collection of my favorite songs that I'll just put on. Yeah, that's my way of music now. What about you?
I think that's become the way of music now, and I think it's reflected in new music in the sense that you used to go buy an album. So there used to be a lot of focus from musicians of making a good album. And that went from the structure of it and the story it told when you listened to it from start to finish. And it included things like the album art cover, because that was part of the experience of going and buying the vinyl, the CD. With all the streaming now, I think that's even changed, that even the musicians aren't thinking about it in that way. Maybe some of the old ones still are. I'm sure Springsteen still thinks of it in the sense of an album. Yeah. But certainly the new generation, it's all about the single, isn't it? It's all about the song. And then that's what ends up happening is you love this song from this artist, this one from this, and you end up more with playlists and less with albums. I think now that's the way we listen to things, is via playlists as opposed to albums.
Yeah.
That's
definitely. So I suppose the ease of listening to music, like you don't have to carry all these CDs around anymore and things like that. I think the ease is, revolutionized. It's, to be able to put some earpods in and jump around, for instance, listen to music. But then maybe it's lost the art of the music art, the actual, you know, album cover, and then the album. I don't think it's a gain or a loss. It's just changed, isn't it?
It is just change, and in some ways it helps things in the sense that musicians, like if you listen to musicians, as in those who play instruments or play with a band, there's a lot more on them doing concerts because they don't really make much money anymore, I mean, relatively speaking, off of the album sales. So the whole tour and the merchandise
Events, yeah.
becomes a lot more. And obviously at the moment that's not a thing, but I think it encourages more live music. And now we've got, you know, more festivals and music things than ever before. And I think that's a great thing that's kind of prevailed and moved forward and all the rest of it. So yeah, I agree. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just certainly the new way, the change. Yeah.
So this would be one of my favourite things at the end of a trip. Quite often when we're on that last bar of a road trip back from Belgium or whichever tournament, you know, unfortunately we've missed this year, I'd quite often commandeer the radio and I'd just go through this playlist, and we wouldn't play the song entirely. I'd just be go in like, oh, this is a good Aerosmith. This is a good Alanis Morissette. Oh, this is good Annie Lennox. I'm gonna just go through here and I'm gonna see what pops out.
Jumps out.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm going to start with a B here. The Colour of Love, Billy Ocean.
Great song, great choice.
It just sits as one of my earliest memories, and it went, no matter where I am, where I listen to it, what the mood or anything, it just makes me feel happy. It just makes me feel like you're just a little kid again, going to the toy shop, being spoiled or something. It just has that real happy feeling to it. I just think there's a lot of lovely lyrics and words in it. So that's going to be one of my three I'm going to give you. Billy Ocean, The Colour of Love. I would call it Bob Dylan, but I don't know what one. I do like Bob Dylan. And then, you know, Bob Marley. Can you see this is going to take a while, Az?
Well, we're only on B, so we've got a while to go.
Bruce Hornsby, The Way It Is. God, I can't drop that. But I suppose what I will choose then, I can't do a top three, obviously, without a Bruce. There's got to be a Bruce number in. And if you put a gun to my head and said, I have to choose a Bruce Springsteen song, my favourite, and this goes with the Bruce Hornsby, The Way It Is, as in there's a kind of a link here. It has to be off of the live album, I want to get the date right. Look, that's how bad my brain's working today. It's off the live version, because all of his stuff was better live. The 1980 whatever it is to 80 something, I can't remember the album. And the song I'm getting to is Reason to Believe, the live version with the harmonica. It's just the lyrics in that song and the meaning behind that song. Just a reason to believe of, you know, a lady whose husband ran away and she would wait at the end of the dirt road all the time for him to come back, but he was never coming back. A guy standing by the highway poking a dead dog in a ditch. It's like how people just continue to move forward, continue to slave away, continue to do what they do just because they believe in something. They believe in life, they believe in goodness in people, they believe in, you know, the American dream, whatever, you know, it was being written about. I find that song, and like The Way It Is with the Bruce Hornsby song, is, yeah, I think there's just a lot to that.
And unfortunately, you've shown the synchronicity of the universe once again, as that is my absolute favorite Springsteen song to not only listen to, but also to play on guitar. So if I ever feel the need to play Springsteen, that's the first song I turn to. I love that song. Live versions of it with the harmonica and all the rest are just incredible.
Yeah, and what I also like about the song, in a sense, why I put it in the top three, it's not necessarily a well-known song. You'd have to be like a fan of Bruce to know the song, and especially the live version. I like the live version the best, and it's off of Nebraska, which was an album he did after Born in the USA. The greatness of the Born in the USA, like I could say Born in the USA would be one of my top songs because of, again, childhood memories, but it, like Dancing in the Dark, but this song is so great because it's also not one of the great, known songs as well. Like, oh God, Chris Rea, Cher, Coldplay. Do you like Coldplay? As I know that's always a bit like Marmite to people, isn't it?
I like Coldplay. I don't love Coldplay, but I like a Coldplay song. I think The Scientist is a beautiful song. I think they've wrote some great music. Yeah, I don't. For me, it's certainly not Marmite, but it's not anything that blows me away. But I'm not offended by them. I get what you mean though. Coldplay is one of those things where you say, "Oh, I like Coldplay," and people go, "Oh, you like Coldplay?" Like it's
music.
really something.
Yeah.
Where I just think that's not that bad.
Ed Sheeran.
I used to like Ed Sheeran, and I feel bad because sometimes I think it's my fault that I've become a bit of a music ponce, that just because he's famous now, I don't like him. But I don't like much of his recent stuff. But his first couple of albums, I think they're almost flawless in terms of, like, you could listen.
Did you
from
not
start
like
to
Divide?
finish. I no, I'm going to say no. I mean, I'm not that I didn't like it. It just doesn't. They're not resonating with me the way his old music with. Another person like is Ben Howard, who I thought his first album was just almost perfection, and then I've not enjoyed music from him as much that's come from that. And I don't know if that's just a case of he gave his best early on, or it's just I don't know.
That's what, because the Ed Sheeran, The Divide, I just found that was a great album because it was almost like he went through genres of songs throughout an album. That's what I liked to that. But here, moving on, I'm on to Ease now. Eric Clapton, Rhythmics, Faithless, Fine Young Cannibals. Why could I? You called a Fleetwood Mac, so I won't call a Fleetwood Mac. I actually know what I think I'm going to go to. In Excess. Do you like In Excess?
I like In Excess.
My brother was a big fan of In Excess. He's on one of the live albums, actually.
He's on one of the live albums.
He's one of the 100,000 in the crowd. Kings of Leon. I want to say the Lighthouse Family, but again, that was a funeral song, so it's like it resonates because of that, and I've liked the song because it makes me feel happy about that moment, in a sense of enjoying someone's life.
But right there is what I mean about it all, isn't it? It's not that you could sit there and say, it's better than Mozart in terms of its musical content or anything like that. But no one can take away what it means to you, and no one could come and say anything to you that's going to take away from that. So there's no argument. No one could come and justify, actually, JC, you're wrong about that song that was played at that funeral. That shouldn't make you feel like it. You should have had this song. And you're going to go, you know what? You're right. I've completely changed my mind. So
Michael Bolton. I'm really enjoying a bit of Michael Bolton at the moment.
I enjoyed Michael Bolton. He's not been in recent rotations, but I have no issue with him.
This has come up in a couple of conversations recently. Not Mike and the Mechanics. I like a bit of Mike and the Mechanics. I fell asleep at my first concert, which was Mike and Mechanics. Some people will say, "Oh, I know why." I was only about 5 or 6, something like that. This has come up in a couple of conversations. Are you allowed to say you still like Michael Jackson now?
Yes. I mean, if you're asking me, yes. So here's a huge thing which I think has to be taken into consideration. I always try to separate the music and the musician from the person. And I do the same across everything, in terms of there are certain sports personalities. I respect them for what they do in a sport, fighters especially. And then people say, yeah, but he's an arsehole, he's this, he does that. And I'm like, has nothing to do with it. It's his art that I'm appreciating, and it doesn't, in my opinion, reflect on it in any way, shape, or form. If anything, a lot of it might be a necessity to make the art. In that sense, that they're
alcoholics and everything else.
Jimi Hendrix without drugs, I don't know if you get Jimi Hendrix. I don't think that music appears without the drugs. So to say that he's got problems with drugs, it's like, yeah, I hope so, because
Yeah,
otherwise
we're not going to hear that
Hendrix.
guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's a bit different with what Michael is, but we don't know what Michael is. We don't know what happened. But for me, no, I don't have an issue saying I enjoy Michael Jackson and his music.
I'm getting more present things here for when people have these comments. I can,
That's cool.
yeah.
When it comes to music, I'll help you. I'm your man. We're good to go.
Moby, whatever happened to Moby?
Whatever happened to I think one day he just said, you know what, that'll do. And just, I really think he just packed it up. He's on every advert, but he seems to just be done with music as far as I know.
Yeah, Nelly, New Order, that's old school in my mind.
That's pretty old school.
Oasis, love a bit of Oasis.
Yeah, love a bit of Oasis.
OMD, that always winds Lauren up, the whole electric, musical side of things. Paul Simons, like, how can you not have something from Gracelands? How can you not call that? Prince, Prodigy, Red Hot
Once
Chili
again,
Peppers.
For anyone who hasn't realised, JC is almost incapable of giving top threes and gives top 300s almost every time now.
Robbie Robinson. I do like a bit of Rod Stewart as well. Roxette.
Can't agree with you on Rod Stewart.
No, you don't.
We'll part ways on Rod Stewart.
Yeah. Runrig.
Give me a song.
So The Greatest Flame, I would say, or Amazing Things.
I think they're one of those ones I'd need to hear it and I'd go, yeah, I know it, but I'm not as familiar enough to know the.
I'll write it down and check it out for next
It's
time.
on my list. I've got it.
Runrig. Where are we here? I'm going through Simply Red. Are you offended by Simply Red?
I'm a huge fan, and I don't even consider it a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, Stereophonics.
Good music.
Stevie Wonder, Steve Winwood.
Nothing wrong.
Talking Heads. I'm going to call it that. Yeah, once in a lifetime. That's going to be my top 3. Talking Heads, once in a lifetime. But I didn't even get to U2 or UB40 or where or Whitney Houston, or we're going back around where you add songs to a playlist and it prior to you sorting it in order.
Well, I think if nothing else, you've shown that you have good taste in music. In my subjective opinion, which is all it ever is before anyone gets upset.
That's all that matters, isn't it?
That's all that matters. Yeah, and that's the real thing with all of it, isn't it? If it makes you feel good and you enjoy listening to it, then who cares what anyone else thinks?
And I've got, before we do our quotes, I've got a food-related topic. If you'd like me to bring, I think you brought last week's, didn't you? And we need to follow up on that, I think. So this week, I had an experience yesterday. I feed Bruce raw meat. Yeah. As in we go kill a local child and rather than your traditional like pedigree chum or biscuit or that. He eats raw meat. We get it from a raw meat dog food dispenser, and we got a little Hoover here on it as well. She basically hoovers up her food. I think she needs a little bit of filling up. Yesterday he was eating his food, so I've got them both outside. She takes literally, you could go 1, 2, 3 and it's gone. He takes forever to eat his food, and she's like wanting to get his food. If I let him go, he'd just like snarl at her. And I watched him. He picked a bit up and put it on the side of his bowl. He ate the rest. He looked at her and then walked off. It's one of the nicest things I have ever seen. Wow. He consciously left the pup some food. It was like, wow, yeah, that blew me away yesterday.
Oh, that's really nice. That reminds me of a Chinese proverb about heaven and hell. Have I told you about this before?
No, is this going to be your quote?
I mean, I'm going to count it as my quote. I had one, but this is better. And this is very much related to what you said. So this is a little, I think it's a folk tale or a story that they would tell the kids to explain the difference between heaven and hell. So this man basically has a near-death experience. And in this experience, he gets taken and shown the 2 versions. So the first thing he's done is he's taken to hell. And he goes to hell, and what it is it's a giant dinner table with everyone who's in hell sat at it. And instead of arms, everyone has giant chopsticks. So your arms are gone. You've just got giant chopsticks. The dinner is everything you could ever want, everything you could ever imagine, but you are incapable of getting the chopstick back into your mouth. So therefore, it's just a bunch of people crying because they can't eat the food. And he says, this is horrible. This looks like torture. I can't stand it. I don't want to be here. And they go, okay, well, if you're a good person and you're going to go to heaven, let me show you the difference. They go to heaven and he says, I can't see the difference. Again, big table, everyone sat around it, and everyone still has chopstick arms. Nothing's changed. And whoever takes him, I can't remember, the deity, says, just look a little closer. And the only difference is that the people are feeding each other across the table. So instead of trying to feed oneself, they are picking things up with their giant chopsticks and feeding their neighbor. And everyone is feeding each other. So heaven and hell is no different. It's the people that make it.
I've got that one down now as well. I'm ready. I can see so many places that coming out. Weddings being
Bruce is going to doggy heaven, that's for sure.
Yeah, Bruce is far more enlightened than us, isn't he?
There he is.
Right, so I'm going to wrap it full circle today. He is your friend, your partner, your defender, your dog. You are his life, his love, his leader. He will be yours, faithful and true to the last beat of his heart. You owe it to him to be worthy of such devotion. And that's to me one of the greatest dog quotes there can be, and how it sums it all up, and how these horrible people in the world can treat an animal or a child, that, as we said, in any other way.
Boom.
Nice. I enjoyed that. As that feels like it was longer than our usual one, but it's a short.
We did a full hour today.
It's a short combo.
It's all subjective, my man. It's all subjective. We're in the moment, dude.
Yeah.
That's all it is, bro.
Cool, wicked. Well, I'm going to go sleep now and be in the moment.
You go sleep. I'm going to go eat. And everyone like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will see you soon.
Peace out.
Peace out.